Here's a little horror story for you, and it's one of ours, so you know it'll be slightly different. So, let's begin. On a night, just like most nights, there was a young wahine growing up being her being, just like us, being our beings. She's a young mum, this young wahine, with a young son, on her own, raising him, working as one does. And one night, just like any night, she rewards herself and gets a babysitter and goes out for a beer and a bite. And she ends up in a bar, just like most bars, having that beer and a bite. And a man, not like most men, buys her a drink and chats her up. And our little wahine, for the first time in a long time, forgets all about the stresses of being a mum and living in the world as we do. And she gets a bit tipsy after a while. And this guy says to her that he knows another bar which is better for that beer and a bite. So she agrees, as she wants to stay in that moment carefree and happy. So she leaves the bar with this guy, and she does something stupid. She decides to drive. This guy tells her where to go. So they end up in nowhere, like a lot of nowheres, and this guy jumps out and says he'll just go check, and says he'll be back in a minute, and comes back in a minute and says come with. And she, being wasted, said, okay. And our little wahine walks with this guy. And as they're walking, she suddenly feels that 8 cents kick in. And she feels scared. So she turns to leave this guy in this nowhere. This guy grabs her arm and slams her into the ground. Then this guy pulls out a very big knife, holds it to her throat, and says to her, scream and I'll kill you. And then he rapes her. And as he's doing that, he starts hurting her more and more. And it got too much for the little wahine, so she started to scream. So he stopped. And for that moment, in that moment, she, still being wasted, naked from the waist down, took off and tried to get away. But he caught her and he bashed her. And then he did it all over again. This guy that's not one of us. Then when he had finished, he told the little wahine to get dressed and ordered her to come with him down a path. And she saw a rickety old shack, and he dragged her to the door. And when they entered, there was another one of these guys, and he raped her too. Then both of these guys, them, left and went outside, and our little wahine got dressed and went outside beaten and bruised, and saw both of these sex offenders chatting to each other. Then bad guy 1 told her to get in the car. She got in, and the bad guy 1 started driving towards the interstate, Highway 1, out of that place called nowhere. And as they were driving, beaten and bruised, the last of her mana, the thought of her son, and that she, our little wahine, our little mum, would never see her son again. So our little wahine opened the door and rolled out onto that road and bolted as fast as she could and made it. And justice turns up and finds the bad guy, this bad guy who was already a bad guy on supervision for being a bad guy. And the judge throws the book at him, that big book of justice, and bad guy 1 gets 43 years for what he did to our little wahine. Punishment and justice turned up. Late, but nonetheless turned up. So the little wahine went on with her life, and bad guy 1, Arthur Williams, went on with his. Now, in our little story, we're going to time jump into the future called the present, 23 years from the time he committed his crime. And in our little horror story, we're about to see the effect. What changes in his life have come about from the time he did in that place called nowhere 23 years ago. For that's what justice is, the changes that makes upon the offender, how it changes their lives, how his crime has affected and changed him for the better. To have people speak up on his behalf about his life and how everything has changed for that better, and that he has left all of that behind him and is ready to start a new life. So let's go listen in and see if Utu has been paid and justice has been done and our lives have been changed from the crime that he committed 23 years ago.
Arthur Williams, DOC number 332577, third class offender. Parole eligibility date 8/1/2021. Good time date 12/18/2033. Full term date 7/4/2041. 44-year sentence. Attempted escape. forcible rape, theft over 500. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. How old are you, Mr. Arthur?
48.
And for the record, we have Mr. Randy Myers that'll speak at the appropriate time. Mr. Randy Myers.
Excuse me?
And we have Mr. Ray Charles Arthur.
Yes,
Okay. Then we'll speak at the appropriate. How old are you?
48.
How long have you been incarcerated?
Approximately 23 years and a few months now.
23 years on a 44-year sentence. Tell me when your last disciplinary write-up was.
March 1st of 21.
Tell me about it.
I was intoxicated. I had smoked something that I wasn't supposed to do.
Mojo or just something?
Yes, yes, it was.
And you've been in jail 23 years and you didn't know that probably wasn't a good thing?
I know. I tried. I know.
Yeah, that's tough. That's going to be a problem for me. Listen, have you taken sex offender treatment?
Yes, sir, I have.
You taken all phases?
I've been in one phase at a few different facilities, and it's not that I hadn't taken all the phases. It's just that I've been getting kind of stopped because of either been moved from a facility and recently this COVID. So
Right.
I hadn't had able to actually finish the whole treatment. So
Right, you hadn't taken it. You've taken just phase one is basically what you're saying, correct?
yes, sir.
First up, we have a warden that speaks on behalf of Arthur, the bad guy one, to say that his life is turned around.
Yes, sir. My name is Colonel Anthony Alamo. Right now, this individual, Mr. Williams, actually works for me on the wall. He arrived here in 2016. He's a very, very hard worker, very respectful to staff. And the incident that he had over a year ago with intoxication, and nothing matches in his record or even his street charges to even come close to what he had did, and he apologized for that for 2 or 3 months. So I know it hurt him, and he didn't really like what he actually did. He was mad at himself with it and stuff. It wasn't like he's just a constant user like some of them that I do have. But, you know, prior to that, he was 3 years right up free. And he messed up, made a bad decision. But he's a very, very good worker and respectful to staff.
All right, thank you so much for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Next up, we have his cousin that believes bad guy one has done enough.
Arthur James is my first cousin. You know, he was my first brother. You know, I'm the oldest child that my parents have, and he was like my big brother. You know, he taught me so much. And, you know, going through life when you don't have that piece, that piece of the puzzle as far as just, you know, family, you know, it's hard. And I miss my better half, but I know, you know, he had to pay for his mistakes, and I feel like, you know, through this time it's finally getting to him, and he's understanding what it is. You know, at the beginning, he didn't have a good support staff. He didn't have people around him that was telling him, you know what I'm saying, or trying to help him to get better. You know what I'm saying? And right now, our family is in such a much better spot. You know, I know if you guys would see it in your heart to allow my cousin to come home, that the support staff and the love that will be around him and showed to him, he would be an exemplary citizen. I just feel that, you know what I'm saying, I believe that. And I just want to thank you guys for allowing me the time to speak on my cousin's behalf.
All right, thank you.
So that's all from Arthur's side to show the parole board that in this story that Arthur has changed, that his life and that crime is behind him, that Utu has been paid, and that his life will only get better. And Arthur, our bad guy, feels the hope of sunlight on his skin, that it's true, he's put all of that badness behind him, that his crime and the punishment has changed his life for the better, that the days will only get brighter. But you see, what Arthur doesn't know about this story is that Mana has turned up, our little Wahine, that young mum with a son. You see, Arthur, like most sex offenders, never thinks about the victim, because they see it as if they can change for the better, then the victim's life can't get any worse. Because like DC sex offenders, the thought that if they can get over it and not do it again, then that should be enough, for he's changed his life for the better.
I'm opposing his early release. He has caused me to have visions of this most of every day of my life since then. I carry around a fear of trusting people, always looking over my shoulder, fear of driving in certain areas, now nightmares of the image in my head that won't go away. I thought I would never see my son. It was 4 days before his birthday. It's hard to get close to anyone that have any kind of relationship, and hard to talk about it. Right after it happened, I laid on the floor for days in a fetal position and only ate to survive. I don't think I can ever get over this. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your comment.
It's a screwed up world when it comes to justice, when the strongest weapon that we have protecting us from the bad guys getting out is the same one that we and the whole justice system has been built to protect. It's a screwed up world after all.
To vote, I'll vote first, Mr. Arthur. Listen, you're saying you're doing right and doing right, two things. You've had write-ups every year. You've had them every year. Not just, you didn't fall back just last, you had 46 write-ups from 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's something you need to get under control. You do need to, for me to ever support you, you're going to have to complete the sex offender treatment. But you'd have victim opposition, law enforcement opposition. You need sex offender treatment. You have poor institutional records. So my vote is to deny you parole.
Mr. Williams, I've listened intently, and to the young lady, your victim, I just applaud you. The courage and determination it took to let your voice be heard today, and I heard you. And I believe Mr. Williams did too. I don't think he never heard it before. But as to you and my vote is to deny as well. But you've lost 386 days of good time, very poor supervision history, and some of the things that's already been stated. My vote is to deny as well.
All right, Mr. Williams, I'm not going to rehash the farm because it was really terrible. And I think we just got a glimpse of what impact it's had on the victim in this case. And I hope that has had an impact on you also. I think it's important that you complete all phases of the sex offender program. Now, I understand that's not necessarily your fault that you're not been able to do that, but I think it's critical for you going forward to complete all phases of that, as well as victim awareness, so that you really can understand how devastating this is for the victim in this case. But I think you have some more work to do. So my vote today would be to deny.
3 votes to deny today. Your parole's been denied. Good luck to you.
Sex crimes. Sex crimes are the crimes which can identify a type of person that is capable of committing such a crime. It is the type of crime that it is expected that the victim won't recover from, because a part of them dies and the memory of that murder lives on forever. And that is why Utu is so severe, because just like homicide, the part of that being which is murdered can never be brought back to life. The sex offender. This weekend, we have a lesson on the universe, the justice system, and the weapons of which we use in the war against them. I'm going to introduce you to a type of fire called La Cruza, and it is a beautiful fire. So all of you, stay safe. Stay safe, all of you. And I'll see you all in class this weekend. Ka kite.